Culture has become such a buzzword and so frequently used, but rarely is it ever defined. We put it on office walls in our break rooms. We use it to justify hiring decisions. When things are going great, we have a wonderful culture, and we blame it when everything falls apart. But the uncomfortable truth is that most people using the word culture don't even know what it actually means. Well, today we're going to be stripping back all the buzzwords and we're going to define what culture really is, how to improve it, and why, if you don't understand it, you're already losing the game. So if you're ready, let's go. If I were to ask you to pause me right now and tell me what is the definition of experience, what would you do? How would you define that? And this is an exercise. Not only do I want you to do it listening out there, but I also want you to do it with your employees, your team members, and ask them what it means. And what you're going to get is a different response from every single person. Now, if you look at the responses, they all kind of mean the same thing, just verbalized in cliches and in different ways. But the reality is, they're not going to know. And most likely, you're not going to know what the definition is. So the next question I have following that is how do you achieve an improved experience for yourself, your team members, and the people that you want to buy and those that have bought from you if you don't even know what the definition is? Well, a couple of years ago, I was speaking at Invisalign Summit, and their theme was experience matters. And I've talked about this briefly on a previous podcast. I believe it was last season. And whenever I hear the word experience, I say to myself immediately, I chuckle a little bit because I'm somebody, I mean, we're an experience company. Everything that we teach on here is how to improve the experience for the business owner, the team members, the people that you want to buy from you, and those that have bought from you, right? You can sum it all up into those little four things right there, is that we teach experience for a living. So I study it. I read books. I listen to podcasts. I'm on a relentless pursuit to get better at it, more knowledgeable with it for all of you out there, whether it be the listeners watching on YouTube. Hey there, you're listening on the audio experience channels, or you're a client, a new patient group, and or Wright. I want to make sure that we are the best for all of you. Well, the reality is, when I ask audience members, they don't know. The doctors didn't know. The Invisalign employees, when I was asking them, they didn't know. And therefore, I want you to ask yourself, how do you accomplish it as a team, like I asked before, if you don't even know what it is? And to break it down really fast for you, then I'm going to tie this in on what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to break it down into four stages here momentarily. Whether you're talking customer experience, employee experience, patient experience, whatever it is this the totality of cognitive, affective, sensory, and behavioral responses of an employee or a customer or a patient during all stages of the consumption process. So if you want to improve and enhance employee experience, this is all the things that happen before you interview them. It's all the things that happen after you interview them. It's all the things that happen before you hire them. It's all the things that happen after you hire them. It's every interaction. It's the same thing if you want to improve your conversion, your revenue, your referrals, your patient compliance, your customer compliance, whatever it may be. It's all the things before they buy from you, and it's all the things after they buy from you. That defines experience. And that is why I'm a firm believer. We've been, as I do this podcast today, I've had new patient group for 13 years. And 100% of our customers have had their best revenue year within 2 years of working with us. And why we don't focus on the entire consumption process at once, it's very singular focus until it gets implemented really well, then we move on to another one. The reality is we are plugging leaky holes in every stage of this consumption process. And it works. But you have to know what experience means. And at the beginning of all of these things, when you talk experience, sits culture. And if you look at the consumer journey, whether that be the employees, then the journey they take with your business, or the patients or the customers that they take with your business, what sits in the beginning is how good of a leader you are to create the right culture you want to have to achieve your vision. The problem is that we talk so much about leadership and how to be a better leader, but what we don't talk about, and I'm at fault, and that's why I wanted to move this in here today, is what is the definition of culture? Because no different than if you ask 1,000 people what the definition of an experience is, you're going to get a different definition from everybody. It's the same thing that if I asked you right now, pause it, think about it, what is the definition of culture? And it's very likely that you're not really going to be able to come up with an actual definitive answer to that. You may be able to spit out some feelings on how you may feel about it. You know, an employee going the extra mile, or having fun, right? Or doing the right things for the patient, right? Those kind of cliches. Like, but that's not the definition. And you should ask your employees the same question. What is culture? Like what does it mean? What do you want from a good culture? You should ask these questions because until you are all on the same page with it, no different than experience. If you want to enhance experience, you have to be on the same page. And if you want to enhance culture, you all have to be on the same page. So today, what I'm going to do is break this down into 4 stages. Each stage will define culture. Right? I'm going to give you some exercises, kind of some things to think about. And I want you to walk away actually having in your head, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is the definition of culture. Right? We're going to break them down into 4. We're going to start the very first one I am going to call the invisible blueprint. We're going to call this the invisible blueprint because the question becomes, what are your people doing when you are not looking? And you need to ask yourself that. Oftentimes, the thing I look for when I go, and matter of fact, this happened when, and it unfortunately doesn't happen often, when I go in for our very first on-site. So when we have our private client coaching, I go into your practice and a whole host of things happen. But one of the things when I'm monitoring that I look for is the culture. What are they saying to each other? How do they interact with each other? Are they having fun? Is it just another blah day? Are they rude? Are they rude to the patients? Are they short with the patients? Are they short with each other? One of the things that I look for that I was referencing is at the end of the day, when people are clocking out and they've had a hard, long day, do they clock out in their own isolated world and do they leave? Or, and this happened in the practice I was just in, before they clock out, do they go to each employee and say, hey, I know it's been a hard day. Is there anything I can do for you to help you clock out sooner? Because I'm done. I'm ready to go home, but I want to make sure that you have the help that you deserve because we've had a hard, long day. And that was happening at this practice. And I was so impressed because it was happening, but the doctor was in doing clin checks. The office manager was in another room, right? There wasn't anybody looking. They were doing it, and there was multiple team members doing it before they clocked out for the day. And I got to tell you, I mean, that is such a wonderful sign of the leadership in that practice. And those are things that you have to be wondering, what are people doing when you're not looking? And it's an interesting concept because a lot of you out there want people to go the extra mile for your patients, go the extra mile for your customers, go the extra mile for you as the business owner, go the extra mile for each other as teammates. But then, and this is not what today's about, but it absolutely is on topic. But then if you look at the goals of your organization, it's all finite. It's all this finite crap. It's all around growth and production and collections and new patients and referrals and all this crap that is finite oriented. You can't control it. It doesn't motivate anybody. It's not filled with innovation, right? It's all finite, yet you want everybody to go the extra mile, right? So there's no structure in the organization on how to improve their mindset. There's no structure in the organization to support them as a personal, as a human being. There's no structure to help them advance their career by constantly training them on things. The goals aren't around how do we become better at the patient experience today than we were last week? How do we become better? How do we become better for each other this week than we were last month? Right? Those aren't your focal points. Like, how do we build better relationships with our patients? How do we create the know, like, trust factor, which are really the 3 most important words in sales in any industry? I don't care if you find the word dirty or not, because it's not dirty. All it means is education. You want to increase your prices, become a better educator. Want to increase your conversion, become a better educator. Learn how to sell your value. If you're scared of the word, you need to change your mindset. But how in the world can you create a culture where people are doing what you want them to do when you're not looking and going beyond for the patient, going beyond for you, going on beyond for the employees, their team members, their fellow team members, when all you ever do is talk about numbers? And that's a real legitimate leader to leader leadership question for all of you that you must rethink whenever you're blocking time and you're meeting with each other and you should be role playing and you should be trying to build on each other's skill sets and give each other feedback and role play and put yourselves in difficult positions so you're better in that same scenario the next time it happens with a patient, customer, or client. Right? But so many of you don't do it this way. right? And this is why when people aren't looking, when you're not looking, what are they doing? You can't expect them to go beyond for you, their team members, the patient, if all you ever do for them is talk about numbers. So the invisible blueprint is all about what is happening when you are not looking. What are they saying to each other? What are they saying to the patient? And I got to tell you, I mean, I cannot, this is unfortunately, this is probably 8 or 9 out of 10 practices. Every 10 practices I go in, you have employees bad mouthing patients up at the front desk, right? The patient that no showed, the patient that's not compliant, whatever the hell it is, they are talking about that to each other up at the front desk with patients in the waiting room. Happens 8 out of 10, maybe more at practices that I walk into. What are your team members doing when you're not looking? The second one, shared language. So many times, I want you to look at it this way. So exploring this really is going to explore how specialized language or shared metaphors really dictate how a team perceives and is on board with change, with a new challenge. And what I believe and what we're going to be talking about right now is I believe that if you change the language, you can change the state, the mood the team's in, and you can eventually change the culture, right? Because you may want people to do things the right way when you're not looking, like we talked about in number one. One of the ways that's going to happen is you've got to change the language. You can't allow certain things to exist inside your organization. I'll give you the perfect example that happens a lot. I got back from, and it was a really good first on-site visit. This was a few weeks ago. We had a Zoom call recently with their office manager and the doctor. You know, the one thing they were talking about is how many people came to them and they're like, we don't have time for this, right? And see, I see that a lot. That's the majority. That's not the minority. That's the majority. So once you allow that in your organization, you completely lose the ability. And those employees that have convinced themselves they don't have time to do it, see, that spreads. That's not the only, there's not one person saying it. It may be one person in the beginning, then another person says it because that person said it. But usually you have the we don't have enough time people. And unfortunately, a lot of you, that's the doctor out there. You've convinced yourself you're so busy, yet you're doing analog braces. You won't do remote monitoring. You won't increase your share to chair with clear aligners. You won't outsource, yet you sit and complain that you're busy. Right? You won't implement any of the solutions to keep you from being busy. All you do is complain about it. Right. So a lot of times you're the culprit of this too. And this is very much comes from the top down, meaning that if you're always, we don't have enough time, we can't do this, we shouldn't do this. Right? Why do we have to change? What we do works now. Right? Those kind of things a lot of times come from the office managers. A lot of times they come from the business owners, doctors, or other industry business owners, whatever it may be. So if you're doing it, of course the team's going to do it. So if you want change to happen, and when you present a challenge to your team, a new direction, a new mission, a new vision, if you want them to say, because there's two really scenarios that I see. It's the scenario of we don't have enough time. And the moment they say that, or you say that, you completely lose the ability to be able to do this. Wow, boy, we're strapped for time, but I really like that idea. That idea is legit. And clearly it works. I mean, look at how many doctors have been successful implementing that. You know, I would love to have more time. So I am going to bust my butt to be able to implement this idea to the best of my abilities. I'm going to watch the on-demand course. I'm going to commit to the role plays, and I'm going to become so damn good at this that eventually it becomes and replaces my old routine. And as I become better at the new way of doing it, I'm going to save a lot of time because it's going to get me on and off the phone faster while adding more value. It's going to get me in and out of the exam room while offering more value. It's going to get me in and out of a refinement appointment scan as an assistant while building value and offering more value, right? And I'm going to be able to do it quicker because all of your goals should be, how do you say more with less and build value at the same time? You should always be striving to learn how to, because time is the most precious asset you have. But you lose that ability completely whenever these things are said. We can't. We're already good at what we do. Why are we doing this? I don't have time. You have to get rid of that language, and you have to make it very clear as a leader that that language is not allowed. And at all costs, you cannot use that language yourself. Office managers, you cannot use that language yourself. Even if you're thinking it, right? Go hide in your office and talk out loud to yourself. How the heck are we going to do this? Holy cow. But don't say it in front of your team. If you change the language, you will eventually change the culture. Now, again, if you're wanting people to do what you want them to do when you're not looking, number 2 is a big one. Because if they're saying, just look at it, and I'm going to simplify this for you. This is why I came up with these 4s. They all intertwine. Is that if somebody says, I don't have enough time to do this, God, I don't want to do this. I already don't have enough time. Do you really think they're going to do the right thing when you're not looking? Do you really think they're going to take that idea and go, wow, that was a good one. Ooh, I'm going to go do this at my best possible levels? Of course they're not. They are not going to do it. In fact, they're probably going to complain to their team members. They may even complain to their team members, well, you have 4 patients in the waiting room, right? This spreads. And whenever you try to implement new challenges, try to implement change, it's not going to work because they aren't going to do it when you're not looking. You can see how that is all intertwined. Now, the person that is like, heck yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to struggle, right? I feel that I'm busy, but I know that I need my time back. I know there's always a better way of doing it, right? So I'm going to commit. I'm going to kick butt. I am going to do it, right? Can you see how that mentality, that culture, then when you're not looking, is far more likely to go and do it and at least try to do it at their best? That invisible blueprint is real, and so is the shared languages. You have got to change the language inside your organization from negative to positive, from reactive to proactive. You control that as a leader, and you need to make sure that the language that everybody is using is the same. You can't have Susie, the clinical assistant, that's a poopy pants, that is constantly saying we can't, constantly poo-pooing the ideas, constantly saying I don't have time. You can't have that person, and then you have Judy that sits in the clinical chair next to her. That's the go-getter, the one that I'm describing. Because the Judy will be brought down by whatever the name of the other one I said in a heartbeat. It doesn't work. Right? So the people that belong in your organization, belong in your group versus that don't, it's got to be language based. You've got to speak the same way, and it's got to be positive. The third one we're going to be diving into now is the behavioral standard. Another way to look at this one is the ceiling versus the floor. Now, the logic behind this one, and this very much goes into many podcasts I've done. The last podcast I did, I believe, last month. The logic around this is your culture isn't your mission statement. And I need all of you to understand that. That is not your culture. Right? It's not the mission statement on your wall. It's the person who hits their sale. And this, you guys are going to love this one because you hear me talk about it so much. It's the person that hits the sales target, but then treats the receptionist like crap. So when people were looking, because you can see the sales data, everything looked bright and beautiful. But when people weren't looking, he treats the other team member, the receptionist, whatever it may be, like trash. See, this is the perfect example of not speaking the same language as an organization, not doing what you want them to do whenever you're not looking. But see, so many of you are such finite thinkers that you look at the data and you can't think beyond it. So you're like, hey, Judy is our best clinical assistant. Susie's so good on the phones. Judy's so good at converting new patients and to say yes. Joe's so good at sales. It's a boom. There's your decision maker. All of them get promoted into leadership roles. They get your pay raises. They get everything else. Meanwhile, those are the people that maybe, and in many cases, most often, unfortunately, are the biggest problems in your organization because they drive down morale. They treat other people like crap. Many years ago, I was a Houston Rockets fan growing up. And if you're a basketball person at all, you'll know the name Kyle Lowry. He was a guard for many, many years. When the Toronto Raptors, I don't know how many years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was, won the NBA championship, he was the point guard for them. I was actually in Toronto speaking for Invisalign the night they won it. So it was kind of a crazy getting to see Toronto party it up. Well, Kyle Lowry, in his very early days in the NBA, played for the Houston Rockets. And as a Houston Rockets person, I would really pay attention to a lot of things, Rockets growing up. And The Rockets fans were very upset whenever the Rockets got rid of him. He was a really good player. His data was great. When people were looking at him, he was really good on the court. But he had a reputation for treating people, not fellow team members in this example, but the people employed by the Houston Rockets, like their media team, the broadcasters, the marketing team, right? Those kind of people, he treated them, the janitors, like if you will, he treated them like trash. He drove down their morale, treated them like crap. And the Houston Rockets said, this is not the way our brand is going to be represented, right? You're not speaking our language. You're not doing what we need you to do when you're not looking. And in this case, you're driving the behavior to the floor, right? So even though Kyle Lowry was an awesome player, right? And over time, rumor had he grew out of that behavior. Like he didn't do it with Toronto and Miami and the other teams that he was with, right? But he did it with the Houston Rockets when he was still a real young kid making a ton of money. And the Rockets said, no way, pal, you're out of here. You all have to be thinking this way because oftentimes your best player is actually the one that's hurting your organization the most. And as a leader, you have to set not only do you set a ceiling, but you also have to set a floor. You have to say, right, this is the bottom of the barrel behavior that I am going to tolerate and allow in my organization. And if it continues, they have to go no matter how much that hurts now, right? We may not have enough people to serve the patients in the clinic. We may not have enough waiters to wait the tables. Right? But you have to have the discipline to remove these people from your organization. If you want people to do the right things when you're not looking, to have the right verbiage, on being on the same page with that verbiage, you can't keep these people around. So number based, this is why going back to the finite data will never motivate a team because you will always put the wrong people in the wrong positions. You will promote your clinical assistant that has the great hand skills and knows what to do and set up all the trays. You will promote them as a leader, even though they treat everybody else like crap, drive down the morale, drive down the performance, and then you wonder why people aren't doing what you want them to do when you're not looking, why they have negative language like we talked about in number 1 and number 2. These people's behavior has to be corrected. You cannot let it continue. And you have to be smart enough and aware enough to identify this is what's going on. This is the problem I have with corporations and small businesses promoting people that statistically are the best into leadership roles and then giving them no leadership training. They go into the most difficult position of their life and they have little to no training on how to do that. Meanwhile, they got hours upon hours upon hours of relentless training to be good at whatever they had that got them promoted into a leadership role to begin with. It's insanity. But that's how almost everybody does it, unfortunately. Right. But then that person goes and destroys the behavior of the rest of your team, the morale. And then you wonder why. Why are people showing up late to work? Why aren't they making the morning meeting? Why aren't they going beyond? Why do they seem disengaged? It's the person that you think is doing so great is the one doing that to all of them. And you can't allow it. You have to make them example and you can't let them work there if they continue to do those things. And this goes back to the language above. And it goes back to doing things the right way when you're not looking. Is that you want, and one of the things I've always prided myself on is like, even when I'm in hotels, if I'm walking by a janitor, I say hi. Like I'm a human, they're a human, right? Who cares what their job is? Say hi to them. How you doing? Right? Doing great. Good. That's here. You have a great day. Like you could have made that person's day just by spending 10 seconds paying attention to them, right? They're not lesser than you at all. And I think we'd be a better society if we looked at it that way, as we all treated each other with respect. We all treated each other the way humans should be treated, regardless of our position, regardless of our rank, our job title, what we do for a living. I said for years that no matter, how much success I have in this business, I always want to be a guy where people say, awesome dude, I want to have a beer with him. And the guy knows his shit. Right. And he's going to do whatever it takes to help you. Right. That's all I care about. Right. And then hopefully the money and all the things you can't control, hopefully all that follows the time freedom, the money freedom, the stuff that every entrepreneur should strive for. But your culture, everybody, is going to be destroyed if you have people in those positions or people that are just negative. that spreads like crazy. You've got to get rid of them, but you don't have to get rid of them tomorrow. But you at least need to have the conversation to initiate a change in behavior, because they're not doing what you want them to do if they're bad mouthing each other. They're not doing what you want them to do if you all want to have the same language and be positive and have the positive reinforcement language, like we talked about in number 2. If they're driving down the morale, of course, they're not being positive. And lastly, on number 3, I want you to look at it from this perspective, if you will. We all talk about our aspirations when it comes to culture and what we want. Want a team that shows up early. I want to have fun. I want them to get along. I want them to go the extra mile. I want this. I want that. I want them to be happy. Right? I want them to care about their job. Whatever it is, I want. I aspire for this to happen. What you have to remember is that culture is, of course, about aspirations, right? You got to know what you want, or you're not going to be able to accomplish it. But number 3 is really about boundaries. And boundaries, I don't care if it's for your children as a parent or your employees in the workforce, boundaries are critical. And if somebody goes, 1, they have to be defined. But 2, if they go beyond it, you have to hold them accountable. And so many of you don't. You let people, especially the people that I'm describing in number 3, the ones that are good on paper statistically, you let those people get away with things that are absolutely ruining what you're wanting when it comes to those aspirations. And really what's absent, and that's going to lead us into number 4, is a system of accountability. Look, whether it be great sport teams or great businesses, accountability has to be set, and it has to be followed, and it has to be carried out at the highest levels. Because culture can also be defined as the social contract of a group, right? In a high performing situation, high performing environments, take our mastermind, the new patient group mastermind. All of you know how I feel that are in the mastermind about this. For the group to be great, for you all to get the most out of it, is you must not only hold yourself accountable, but the group must hold you accountable at a higher standard for participation. And all the things you've heard me talk about, both on this podcast, individually, face to face, and to the whole as a group. Right? High performing environments have high accountability. You don't achieve high performing environments without accountability, whether you're an athlete, sports team, business, orthodontist, marketing company, plumber, restaurant, whatever it is. Accountability must happen. And unfortunately, so many of you out there, you don't hold your people accountable. And you have every excuse in the book why you don't. I got to have somebody to be at the clinical. Otherwise we can't take care of the patients. I've got to have the waiter. I can't get rid of this person. They have everything in their head, right? I can't get rid of this. I can't get rid of that. You have every excuse in the book. There's no accountability whatsoever. So if they're not doing what you want them to do when you're not looking, there's no accountability. When they're not speaking the shared language and metaphors that we talked about in number 2, there's no accountability. So when they're negative or whatever it is, there's no accountability. The behavioral standard that we talked about, right? There's an infinite ceiling. There is no, we talked about the floor and ceiling in there, but there's really an infinite on the ceiling side of things. You're never going to achieve it. It's always something you're striving for, but there is definitely a baseline that you cannot put up with, but there's no accountability there. Great businesses have great accountability. Accountability are at the highest levels, just like the mastermind group, because when you're looking at this, culture is the collective agreement to hold one another at a higher standard. I have always said one of the greatest compliments somebody else can give you is feedback. Now, how you take that feedback, that's a totally different story. And that goes into your culture and how your employees accept feedback as well. But you cannot have 1, 2, or 3 that I talked about today if you are not going to hold people accountable. And this is how you fall into the trap of you lose good people, you attract bad people, the employees don't go the extra mile, right? You have the wrong people working for you because there is no system of accountability. And if you add up 1 through 4, meaning that if people are doing the right things when you're not looking and you hold them accountable to that, if people are speaking the language you want them to speak when they're faced with a challenge, when you bring in new ideas and you hold them accountable to that. The third one that we talked about, the behavioral standard, and you hold people accountable to that. What you have is an environment that I think is the ultimate test of culture, is an environment that will attract and retain exceptional talent, and it will repel people that don't. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean that they're horrible employees. They may fit somewhere else fine, but they don't fit your group. They don't fit your culture. Right? And that is one of the most amazing ways. If you say, hey, I want to put my finger on a culture statistic that tells me I'm doing the things right. Well, look at your team. Are they all rock stars? Would you give them all pay increases if they told you they were going to leave tomorrow? Would you lock them up and pay them so much money nobody would ever think about dreaming of paying them that? Would you do that for your whole team? And the answer should be yes for everybody. And if it's not, you need to strive for a better culture. You need to strive for your better team. And today, these 4 ways of going about it, the definitions, all the things we talked about will end up in a place where you will find and retain high-level talent, and you will keep high-level talent. You will repel people that do not fit your culture, whether they're a bad person or not, whether they're a bad employee or not. It doesn't even matter. If they don't fit your room, your group, your business, your culture, you got to get them out of there. So you have to hold it and people accountable. As always, everybody, I hope this helped. Thank you for following the Brian Wright Show. We are just continue to grow. It's over 100 countries consistently on the downloads. Means the world to us. If you're watching on YouTube, hey there, thumb this up, make some comments, get some chatter going. Audio Experience channels, 5-star review as always. Share this, friends, colleagues, anybody wanting to get better personally or professionally. Thanks for the following, everybody. And until next time, I'm out.